me talk my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramas, of course, and it is Thursday, so it means it's time for Thursday Trends. Actually, before that, I do want to address the show itself, Life as a Gringo, the podcast, right, that you're listening to right now, that I am beyond grateful for, that people keep showing up each episode and listening and getting something out of it. And we have a bunch of new listeners as well. Big thanks to Apple Podcasts for featuring our show as like a noteworthy show, particularly for Financial Literacy Month and the episodes we've been doing around that. So really excited about that. Shout out to the whole My Cultura podcast team for putting in that work and getting us that placement. It's huge. With that said, I think we are 7 episodes, including this one. So after this, 6, I want to say, left in season 3. If you're a new listener, there's a lot of catching up if you're enjoying the content, so have no fear. There's literally 3 seasons worth. That is over 300 episodes of this podcast, which is fucking insane to say out loud. So this has been roughly 4 years of my life of audio recordings that you can go check out. With that said, I don't want to catch anybody by surprise. I don't want to bamboozle you, if that's the right word, as we only have a few weeks left together in this season. And also, season 3 will be the final season of Life as a Gringo. I'm not going to drag this out. You're not here for that. We're talking about Thursday Trends, but I do want to give you a heads up on that. We'll, elaborate and reflect as we get closer to the end, but I did just kind of want to let you all know who do listen and have been listening, that this is the final season of Life as a Gringo, so we're in the last month of the show's existence. Been blessed to do it for 3 seasons, and it's absolutely incredible, the ride that it's taking me on. I do have other things in the works, so it's, I'll give you that inside baseball, if you will. Again, I know we have a lot of new listeners right now. There's 300 episodes for you to catch up on in the meantime until, until the next phase of my life appears, if you really enjoy it. So, please still subscribe, and the feed will be active in some sort of way even after this season ends, and I'll kind of leave it at that. Actually, we have a couple bonus episodes coming up as well, so that to look forward to, but just want to kind of give you guys a heads up. We'll elaborate more as we get closer to the end. With that said, as far as the topics we're talking about today, I'm going to really just focus in on a few things here. I'm going to focus in on all that is happening with this poor man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, is being held in prison, and the U.S. is trying not to bring this man back home, even though they're the ones who fucked up. So we'll talk about the latest with that. I also want to talk about Puerto Rico. There was a massive blackout, island-wide blackout yesterday. Even today, as we record this, as we talk, it had, I think, 47% of the island got power back. So we'll talk about the latest with all that and everything that's going on. And then on the positive side of things, for our Mi Gente segment, let's talk about Coachella and the Latin representation that we saw there. But first and foremost, as we always do, let's get into the nonsense, the BS, in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, let's start with the story of this man who was wrongfully deported. His name is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now, he was deported from Maryland wrongfully because in 2019, a judge granted him, without withholding from removal status, which means he cannot be deported. So he was given legal status here in this country, the ability to be here legally and not be deported. And he has been an upstanding citizen from every account we can look at, even checking in with, the deportation officers as he's supposed to, working a job, raising his family here in the States. And now, because of Trump and these crazy deportations and fucking not dotting their I's and crossing their T's, if you will, measuring once and having to cut twice, they wrongfully deported this man to a mega prison in El Salvador known as CECOT. I don't know if it's CECOT, however the fuck you pronounce it. And they're saying, they've actually admitted, right? The Trump administration has admitted that this was, in fact, a mistake, an administration error. But even with that said, they're refusing to do anything about it to rectify this problem. They're refusing to try and get this man back home. Now, they have accused him of having gang ties to gangs like MS-13. There's been no proof of that whatsoever. There's a lot of bullshit around that. And it's gotten so bad that even the Supreme Court took on the case, unanimously ruling that the Trump administration, or unanimously ordering, I should say, that he be returned home. And again, this is a Supreme Court that is stacked with Trump supporters, and rarely do they all agree unanimously on a case. Right? Now, the court order properly requires the government to, quote, facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he have not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Now, this is a Supreme Court's decision, basically meaning that they're ordered to help him get back home, and on top of that, pretend like this never happened and not have him privied or subject or victim to any more ICE issues that he unnecessarily is experiencing right now. Essentially, again, his status is legal in this country. He's supposed to be able to be here legally and should not be being hassled as long as he's complying with all of the mandates of that status, which he has been. Now, the Supreme Court also additionally ordered that Trump administration to provide evidence of what they're doing to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia to the U.S. The Trump administration has not complied with the order. Instead, immigration officials have dug their heels in and are refusing to cooperate with lawful orders from the court. This seemingly open defiance is troubling legal experts who are unaware of how this will end. What did we expect? This is a person in Donald Trump who does not respect the idea of law and order, right? And it's crazy to me because this is supposed to be the party of law and order. You're supposed to respect law and order in this country, right? And if you're not doing anything wrong, you should have nothing to be afraid of. We hear that a lot, right? And literally, this is a case of a man not doing anything wrong, but still being deported wrongfully. And this fear is real. I have a friend of mine at one of the places that I DJ. I drove him home over the weekend, and he's here legally, but there was some blockage. Some of the streets on the way to his place were blocked. The cops are blocking them. There's some sort of event they're preparing for, and he was genuinely nervous about ICE and potentially getting stopped by the police and getting hassled, even though he's legally here. Like, that's no way for people to live. That's fucking crazy. and then sending them to a prison that has a reputation as being the place where they send terrorists, a notorious prison that is supposed to be the worst of the worst. And then in a meeting with President Trump, you had the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, claiming there was nothing he or El Salvador could do to return Abrego Garcia, parroting the Trump administration's dubious claims, and this is all from We Are Me Too. President Bukele painted Abrego Garcia as a terrorist. There's no proof that he is connected to gang activity other than wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie. Additionally, they relied on one anonymous informant. Guys, if the sports team you're wearing is a fucking clear indicator and green light to deport people, we're all in trouble. I was in Miami last month wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey. I've sported Chicago Bulls hats of the Michael Jordan era, and actually even newer ones because I like the colors black and red together. And I love vintage items, and there's nothing cooler than the Michael Jordan era and Rodman era of Chicago Bulls history. That's wild. And I saw a clip on Fox News. Some guy, one of these fucking idiots, was it Jesse Waters? I don't remember, but dissecting that how could this man who lives in Maryland be wearing Chicago Bulls gear? Was he a Chicago Bulls fan? I bet you can't even name a player aside from Michael Jordan. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Certain teams, it's part of fashion and culture. What the fuck are you talking about? I just bought a vintage Chicago Bulls polo from a thrift store here around the corner from my place in New Jersey. Like, what the fuck are we even talking about now? The way they're justifying it, it's crazy. It's fucking gaslighting at the end of the day, but it's crazy. Like, they admit that they're wrong, but then try and find reasons to villainize this person, even though they've admitted we fucked up. Even though they fucked up, they're still now trying to justify their fuck up by painting this person out to be something that they're not. It's absolutely crazy. And then Trump was said on a hot mic during that same interaction with the president of El Salvador that, quote, homegrowns are next, meaning criminals that are American citizens he's proposing to ship out to El Salvador. Do you know the irony of somebody who is a convicted felon and somebody who has been convicted in court, even though it was civilly, as a sexual assaulter? I don't know what the word would be. It's not sexual deviant, but fucking essentially found liable of rape and sexual assault. Him declaring that we should send criminals to a whole nother country. How about you send yourself? You're included in that, by the way. You're a homegrown criminal. It's just so wild, and the goalposts moving. And listen, everybody moves goalposts to make their point at times, right? And sometimes the messenger changes where you stand on certain things. But that shouldn't be the case when we talk about the rule of law and order. That in a democracy, the president has to listen to the courts, can be held accountable for his or her actions. That's what this country is founded upon. Imagine if fucking Biden was defying the Supreme Court. Remember when he lost in court about student loan forgiveness? He didn't just proceed with it. They abided by the ruling of the court because that's what you're supposed to do. There's a checks and balances system. No one person is bigger than the entire system. Yet here, you have a scary situation that I feel like is not being underlined enough. The Supreme Court ruled, and yet, even with that ruling, the current administration, the current president, is ignoring it. Where do you go from there? The Supreme Court is supposed to be the end-all, be-all. And now this really brings into question, where is the line? Because now if Donald Trump, and I can't help but feel like this is a test, by the way, a test of where the line is for someone like him, right? I can't help but feel that way, because what he's doing here is saying, in this sort of smaller instance, right, and it's not small for the people that are directly affected by this, like this man and his family, but in a quote-unquote smaller instance that has to do with one person, let's test this out and see what happens if I openly defy the Supreme Court. And if there are no repercussions or no accountability, we've lost our democracy, because then where's the line at that point? Truthfully, where's the line? Because they're already talking about him having a third term, even though the Constitution states 2 terms. There are people talking about an Obama versus Trump race at that point. Listen, I'm a fan of Obama. I don't want to see him run again. I don't think us just throwing everything away and accepting it is the answer. 2 terms for a reason. It's just crazy. And what's crazier is the justification from people and their quickness to villainize somebody rather than hold them accountable, as well as their quickness to, dude, again, the Republican Party is supposed to be the party of law and order. Do you not remember Blue Lives Matter? Right? All those flags, we support blue. Then the fucking January 6th happens. They don't believe in that anymore. Respect law and order. The courts are supposed to be law and order, except for when it rules against their guy. It's just hypocrisy left and right, and I don't have to say that, but this is just egregious. You're telling me the United States of America, the quote-unquote most powerful country in the entire world, can't facilitate the release of somebody who's wrongfully detained in another country? You set them there, you can't bring them back? And by the way, them shipping people over there is costing taxpayer money. The money they're paying the government of El Salvador to take these prisoners is taxpayer money. I thought we were supposed to, we were trying to stop the unnecessary spending. We're trying to be more efficient. Yet we're spending millions of dollars sending people to other countries. It's just wild, man. And I know that sounds repetitive and not a groundbreaking summary or hot take, but I'm at a loss for words as to what comes next. And I've kind of just been blissfully sort of ignoring it all, And then it's times like this when we have to talk about it that I'm like, fuck. The implications for this are incredibly scary. And then where does it stop? If he's not going to respect the rule of law, if he's not going to listen to the highest court that we have, and he's going to openly and publicly defy them, where does it end at that point? We've lost our democracy. And that's why people like Chuck Schumer, not having a backbone and saying we haven't gotten to that point yet, are dead wrong, because we are at that point. The President of the United States is openly defying a ruling, a court order from the Supreme Court of the United States of America. There's no more checks and balances system if he's not held accountable for this. It's over. There's no stopping him and his agenda at this point. At that point, I should say. And I guess we'll wait and see what happens with all of this. With that said, we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll be right back. All right, we are back, and now let's talk about Puerto Rico. You had an island-wide blackout in Puerto Rico once again. In the words of Bad Bunny, when are we going to do something? Puerto Rico. In the words of Bad Bunny, when are we going to do something? Blackout after blackout, piss poor service after piss poor service, overpaying for subpar service, and nobody seems to give a damn. Promises that go unkept. The governor, Jennifer Gonzalez, talking about, threatening that she would cancel Luma's contract. Haven't seen any action towards that. And the messed up part about all of this, aside from the obvious that people are losing power in hospitals, the elderly, businesses are losing money because of these blackouts, losing inventory, people's groceries going bad. The irony and the messed up part about this, one of the more messed up parts about it, is that they then try and make you feel crazy for being upset. Jennifer Gonzalez is in a press conference pushing back on a reporter who said people are losing their groceries, which are already expensive in Puerto Rico. And Jennifer Gonzalez pushes back and says, you don't lose your groceries in just 24 hours. That's your response to justify this horrific accident and make the victims feel dumb and feel bad for being upset. It's disgusting. But also, not everybody, but the people of Puerto Rico, in larger numbers than not, came out and voted for Jennifer Gonzalez. You came out and voted for more of the same. Congratulations. You played yourself. That's what it is. Because this is the problem with statehood versus independence and these governors that are so focused on delivering statehood. Jennifer Gonzalez is only focused on kissing up to the United States of America. She's only focused on delivering her promise of statehood. She's in D.C. kissing the feet of the powers that be, sucking up to people like Donald Trump. Meanwhile, those who elected her and those who didn't, the people she's supposed to be representing, are suffering right now while she's trying to fulfill some crazy dream that probably will never happen because the United States of America has proven time and time again they want nothing to do with the people of Puerto Rico. They believe that Puerto Rico is a burden. So while she's focused on statehood, you on the island are suffering. And that's the problem with a party and a political system that focuses on things like statehood versus independence. You're not actually focusing on the day-to-day issues of the everyday people. Okay? She and Puerto Rico as a whole, Puerto Rico shouldn't even be having statehood versus independence conversations until they figure out the very specific issues that are affecting people on a day-to-day basis. Figure out what's happening with Luma. Cancel that contract and have a plan for energy moving forward. That's not going to change if you become a state. Your power company can still go bankrupt. It went bankrupt in Long Island, New York. That's not things that change because you become a state. The massive amount of debt that Puerto Rico's in, they would still be responsible for it if they became a state or independent. You have plenty of issues to worry about, and this hyperfixation on statehood, that's her focus. It's now causing her not to focus on solving the everyday problems of the people of Puerto Rico. And this is where y'all messed up, because you had a candidate in Juan Dalmau who said, regardless of what the people want, statehood versus independence, I want to focus on making Puerto Rico more self-sufficient and not relying on federal money. How can we make Puerto Rico, the economy grow? How can we create more opportunity here locally to empower ourselves rather than what Jennifer Gonzalez is trying to do, which is just relying on the United States of America? You had a candidate there, and y'all messed up. And I know it's majority of, the people voting and supporting for someone like Jennifer Gonzalez are of a particular generation, an older generation, who are still hanging on to this dream of the great white hope, the great white savior, who has proven time and time again they want nothing to do with you and are scared of any new idea. The people of Puerto Rico, and again, not everybody, but those of you who are not progressive and not trying to change things and not looking for something new in the candidates that you select, you are the biggest hurdle to Puerto Rico becoming more self-sufficient, to fixing the issues that affect your everyday lives. And statehood is not going to solve all of your problems. I hate to break it to you. The poorest states in the United States of America are suffering just like you are. Their citizens who don't have an excess of money, don't come from wealth, they're suffering just like you are. And I can't harp on it enough. Puerto Rico needs to focus on empowering the people and becoming more self-sufficient. That has to be the focus. If the governor's focus is just on statehood, she's ignoring all of the issues that are affecting your everyday life right now. And that's the problem with the political system, the political parties in Puerto Rico. Because rather than saying, okay, we have an issue of an electrical grid, we have a housing crisis in Puerto Rico, and whatever, infrastructure problems with the roads and all these things, she's not focusing her attention in the way that she should there. No, she wants to be in Washington kissing up to the powers that be so that she can make good on this idea of statehood and she can reap all the benefits of it. Meanwhile, the problems back on the island continue to stack up and continue to be a detriment and affect the lives of the people of Puerto Rico each and every day. There's too much scattered, intentions. You have to, they need somebody who's going to go in there and say, okay, what can we do right now? Because obviously this is not working on a day-to-day basis. Yes, statehood versus independence, an important conversation to have 100%. But first and foremost, let's fix some of these problems right now that we can do with our current status. Let's figure out how to actually improve the everyday lives of people of Puerto Rico day to day, the things that they rely on like electricity and housing and roads to drive on. How can we improve that? That needs to be our focus right now. Then we can start tackling everything else. But again, the way the political system is set up right now, when somebody gets into office, they're just trying to push their agenda. And because you keep voting for somebody who wants statehood, her only focus is, how can I suck up to the United States? How can I suck up to Donald Trump and try and make good on this stupid promise that is not going to deliver all that the people who are voting for it expect? That's the problem. The focus is all over the place rather than on what the actual everyday needs of the people of Puerto Rico. The focus is everywhere else except for improving the lives on a day-to-day basis of the people of Puerto Rico. And that's the issue, and that's why nothing gets solved and everything just keeps happening. Why you keep having the same problems over and over again. Because nobody's focused on resolving issues. They're sitting here selling dreams and trying to make some asinine reality of statehood happen rather than actually getting to work on solving everyday problems first. That's where we are. And again, you had someone in Juan Dalmau who wanted to tackle those actual issues, wanted to empower the people of Puerto Rico, wanted to make Puerto Rico far more self-sufficient. But instead, you voted for somebody who wants to spend her time in D.C. kissing up to politicians instead of being on the island, instead of focusing on what can be done for the everyday person. You went from Pierluisi, who blocked canceling Luma's contract or spoke out against it, which then led to it not happening, to then Jennifer Gonzalez, who claimed she would cancel Luma's contract, hasn't done it, and instead has all her energy on becoming Trump's best friend. That's where we are. And I realize that for those of you who aren't, up to date on what's happening, I didn't even explain what happened, but I just needed to get that off my chest. But the blackout happened. 1.4 million people in Puerto Rico left without power. Hundreds of thousands more without water. You have people talking out. Obviously, Bad Bunny is talking out about it, asking when are we going to be done with this? You have people who are stuck on the train system over there. Luma is always, as usual, blaming it on a combination of factors, claiming protection system failure and vegetation on transmission lines, which they keep saying over and over again. If you have an issue with vegetation on the transmission line, maybe then you should focus on maintaining that vegetation. If that's a consistent problem, why is it that they are not focusing their attention on maintaining the growth of said vegetation? There's just a lot to be upset about. And again, you need focus. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not a fucking expert on this. I'm not a politician. But I do know what happens when your mind and your time and your focus is divided into 50 million different places. You end up being incredibly unproductive. Whereas if you chose to use your time wisely and said, okay, there's a lot of issues to handle here. A lot of things we want to do. But what are the 2 or 3 main things that if we solved those problems would drastically and immediately improve the lives of the people of Puerto Rico? That's the mindset you have to have. You have to have a focus and say, we're going to fix these problems. Because instead, it's like, no, my focus is statehood. Because you think and you claim that if we get statehood, all of a sudden every problem is somehow erased. It's a stupid and just ridiculous notion and way to go about things. And people have a right to be angry, and she should be ashamed of herself. And quite honestly, anybody who voted for her, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be. You did your own people and yourself a disservice. With that said, let's talk about some positivity. I apologize, I'm like shortness of breath. Like that cough I've had from when I had the flu is still fucking lingering around, and now it's just like this weird dry cough that is just ruining my fucking life right now. With that said, though, we'll take a quick break, and then we will have some positivity via our Mi Gente segment. Mi Gente! All right, so I just quickly want to talk about Coachella. I've never been. I know it's ironic as like a music guy that I don't love concerts that much. Particularly festivals are just incredibly stressful. It's a lot of work. They're huge, they're gigantic, it's walking, it's hot as fuck. I am intrigued about Coachella. It's on my list, but who knows? Anyway, the reason I bring it up, there's a lot of heavy Latin representation at Coachella. We saw this even in, I think it was 2023, I want to say. Bad Bunny became the first Spanish language artist to headline Coachella, which was huge. And you've had a lot of incredible acts of varying sizes. I mean, we saw Becky G. Becky G has been just fucking stealing the show. She performed with Tyler, and then she did her own set. I think she had the LA Philharmonic as like her backing band for her set, which is fucking crazy. You had Peso Pluma, you had Gustavo Dudamel, you had Hawaiiana from Puerto Rico, which I think I've interviewed them on my old TV show. I don't know if I probably had the interview on the podcast as well. You had Tito Doble P, you had the Marias, you had Junior H, Danny Ocean as well from Puerto Rico, Pacho Amoroso, and it's just a beautiful thing. I don't really have much of a story here. I got to be honest with you. You know, there's not much to say. I just wanted to like give a shout out because you had everything. I mean, you even had Brazilian DJ Vintage Culture performing. You had a Peruvian band, Los Milos. Like, I think what is awesome, and they do like what people call Amazonian cumbia. It's just like crazy. I'm like overusing that fucking word. I just look at this stuff and like I love where Latin music is right now because it's not just one thing. And I love reggaeton. I'm fucking, Puerto Rican. I grew up on that and salsa and all these things. But they're very much like in the box, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. I love that music. But also, it's amazing to me now. I'm hearing like weird fusions of genre. And when I say weird, I mean it in the best way possible. And they're Spanish vocals over it. And it's a Latin artist. And it's like everything. Like you can't even put it into a fucking genre, certain things. Like I'm on my Spotify, like my liked playlist, like I have these crazy artists that I've been finding that are speaking in Spanish, but doing just like this very futuristic and just out there music and sounds and pushing the boundaries. And like, that's what's so exciting to me about all of this, right? Like it'd be cool if, in Coachella, like Daddy Yankee or Don Omar was performing, but it's even more interesting to me that it's Latin artists, but Latin artists doing all types of genres of music. And I think, I use music as an analogy for life, and music to me is such a driving force of culture in general, and entertainment is that, if you listen to this podcast for a while, I'm going to sound like a fucking broken record when I say these things, but again, it pushes the narrative of what it means to be a quote-unquote Latino, right? Like even my own journey. Let's get Life as a Gringo, nostalgic for a second here. When we started this podcast, there weren't like artists doing crazy things like this in the Latin space that were finding wide success. And I'm somebody who's always been into weird shit musically, from fucking metal to, weird fucking indie and atmospheric and like weird electronic music that is not like necessarily club music, and on top of that EDM and house and all these things. And I was looked at as like, oh, you like white music type of shit, and it always bothered me. But it was also like, I guess, I mean, like there's not that much representation of people in these genres doing that type of music, And even when I had my other podcast where we interview, mainly EDM artists, yeah, they were primarily white. Because there weren't people of color crushing it on the big stage, if you will. Not a lot. And now I think if I did that podcast today, how diverse the guest list would look if you like put everybody in a picture. And that's awesome. It's amazing. Right? And to me, it's like exciting because I guess it justifies Young Dramos in like, I just like good music and there's no such thing, it didn't mean I wasn't Latin because I liked music that wasn't stereotypical Latin music. And I love the fact that now for the next generation, you have these artists that are broadening people's perspectives about what it means to be Latin, or proving your Latinness isn't confined to this fucking small asinine box or checklist. Like, I go to, and I guess for me, going to Puerto Rico these last couple of years and like tapping in with people who are doing so many different things, it's been inspiring. And I guess I found myself within that of like, oh, there's like these like gothic kids doing post-punk in Puerto Rico, and like there's a whole electronic scene over there. There's just so much going on. There's metal bands playing and punk bands and everything in between. And, they've always existed, but they were like so niche, And now, again, going there, it's like fashion-wise, there's no way to be Latino. There's no uniform, it's like of being Latino anymore. But if I was, a few years ago wearing more, like a Warped Tour looking outfit, looking a little more like I played in a band, it was like, oh, you're dressing white. And now it's like, bro, there's no fucking boundaries with anything. And that's exciting to me. And again, the next generation, the innovation that comes from that, and I think also the perspective or the perception that people outside of our community have about Latinos inevitably widens and just becomes, I don't know, it just proves that we're not just one thing, which I think is incredibly important and a beautiful thing to see. And like, it's reflected in the Latinos who are performing at a big festival like Coachella, and also the fact that it's such a fucking diverse lineup of people who are Latino playing that festival. Again, just like changes the narrative of what it means to be quote unquote Latino, and that's super, super empowering. Now, with that said, let's tie everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for conclusion stew.
All right, yo, I really am like struggling to make it through sentences. This fucking cough is killing me. I don't know. I'm gonna have to chat GPT some like dry cough remedies because I got to get rid of this thing. I've been fighting it. Like, my chest actually hurts from holding back coughs, and if you heard my voice like breaking, it's because I'm fucking holding back these coughs. Another one's coming right now. I gotta get through this. Listen, Trump administration, what's happening with this gentleman, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is absolutely atrocious. My heart genuinely goes out to his family who haven't even been able to contact him. They don't, people are questioning, like, is he safe? Is he hurt? Is he even alive at this point? Nobody's talked to him. Just crazy. But the bigger, scary thing about all of this is now you have a president who's openly defying a ruling from the Supreme Court, the highest court in our land. And if he doesn't listen to them, democracy is dead. Because at that point, he could do whatever the fuck he wants. The courts, people take him to court, they sue, whatever it is, and he just openly defies it, and there's no consequence. What's to stop him from any crazy thing that comes to his fucking mind? Again, democracy is dead at that point. There's no more checks and balances system. That's a dictatorship. That's what's really fucking scary about this, and that's what makes me on edge, aside from the fact I think about how much suffering this poor man is going through unnecessarily. Puerto Rico with these blackouts, I feel like I spilled my heart out to you guys when it comes to my feelings for it, or my feelings around it. And it's tough not to be frustrated, because I'm like, y'all also, I don't want to do the I told you so, that's not helpful, but it's also like, y'all fucking dug your own grave by voting for the same bullshit again. Now look at you. And again, for those who don't know, people in Puerto Rico pay more money for electricity than we do here in the States, yet they have a subpar service. And the fact that in a public press conference, this fucking person, this is like such Trump methodology, is pushing back and saying your groceries can't go bad in 24 hours? The fuck? That's your response? First of all, milk could go bad in 24 hours not being refrigerated. Any food can. Especially how fucking hot it is in Puerto Rico. But that's your response? The lack of empathy and care is absolutely fucking disgusting and atrocious. I think I told this story before. I'll tell it one more time. When I was in Puerto Rico at the end of the summer with some friends, there was a blackout on the first day that they got there. And we went to one of my favorite spots in Old San Juan. I think it's called Drunken Cookies. I don't know what the fuck it's called. I just stumbled in there. But like they have these amazing cookies, and they give you these like little shots or whatever every time you buy a cookie. So they have like a coquito shot or pina colada, whatever. And they stayed open despite having no power. The employees are there in the fucking dark, basically. And we went in there to, I was like, all right, they're open. Let's buy some cookies and definitely support. And then these poor people, they're like, you guys want the milk? Because it was still, the power had just gone out probably a couple hours or an hour or so before we got there. So they're like, hey, do you guys want to take? They do like they produce milk on their own, like flavored milks and stuff like that, which really good. And they were like, guys, can we give you like, do you guys want to take some of these milks with you as well, like for free? We gotta, they're gonna go bad. And I'm like, man, that breaks my heart because I think about the loss of money they're having in that product right there. However much those milks are, $4, whatever it ends up being. That's lost income for them unnecessarily. And nobody's reimbursing them for that. And that's just one story. And actually, the hotel I was staying at, Old San Juan, has this amazing rooftop. And they do dinner on the rooftop. That night, they closed the rooftop. So you know how much money they lost from dinner and drinks because it's a popular spot that they would have had there. And people be like, oh, well, they should have a generator for it. That's not the point. Again, you're victim blaming. They shouldn't have to go through the expense and hassle of getting another generator because they have one for the hotel to make sure the room stay cold, but another one to power the fucking roof. It's a boutique hotel. Like that, it's just crazy, the victim blaming and the gaslighting that happens around all this. And it really breaks my heart, and it's so frustrating because, like, what the fuck can we do? But at the same time, a part of me is angry because it's like, y'all voted for this as well. And I know it wasn't the majority of people, but enough people voted for it to bring this idiot in office and have more of the same. So that's that. And then Coachella, I've kind of beaten a dead horse at that point. I said everything with culture and stuff, and again, the diversity of the Latin artists on that lineup, and I think in general of Latin artists finding success, is widening, and that means it's the idea of what it means to be Latino is widening, and that's been my goal with this podcast all along, and it's amazing and inspiring to see my personal journey from the day one of this podcast to where I am now, as far as like my comfort and confidence as a Latino, but also I think where culture is shifting, and also where so many of your stories that I've been hearing through the course of these 3-4 years. So beautiful stuff to see. More updates on where the podcast goes. Until then, have an amazing weekend. I'll talk to y'all soon. Until then, peace.